To put it in simplest terms, if you woke up every morning and I told you you suck at what you did, that you don't belong doing what you do, that you shouldn't be here, that this guy should be here, that you haven't earned this right, and then you have somebody else come in and tell you, dude, you are the best fit for this. Like, you are accurate, you are the best whatever, you are this, you are that. Like, how would it make you feel listening to one or the other? You see what I'm saying? And then you hear it, regardless of what it is, the good or the bad. And you hear it more and more. You start to actually believe that. I don't care who you are. You could be the president of the United States. You have a terrible person that's telling you things that you don't want to hear, or that you probably shouldn't be hearing. You're going to start to believe that about yourself. And so that's sort of like what ended up happening. And it was, I mean, it's basically been 2 years of training that out of not just me, but a couple of the guys as well that have been here since my rookie year all the way till now.
Going to pay off for them tenfold.
There's still doubters who say he needs to prove he's worth the money.
This is a guy who's never won a playoff game in a big spot.
Are the Dolphins legit Super Bowl contenders?
No. When they win, it's Tyreek. When they lose, it's Tua.
In the ground game, I need to see Devon Achane. I need to see Raheem Mostert. And I need to see somebody else besides Tyreek command that respect from opposing defenses.
Does anybody think that Tua has proved that he's a $50 million a year player? Not a chance.
You can't win in football if you need warm temperatures to do it.
Mike McDaniel believes in him. Mike rehabbed this dude. Tua was broken under Brian Flores.
Tua Tagovailoa isn't holding back his disdain for former coach Brian Flores any longer. The Dolphins quarterback opened up about Flores in an interview on the Dan Le Batard show on Monday, calling him, quote, a terrible person. Flores, who comes from the Bill Belichick coaching tree, was the Dolphins head coach from 2019 to 2021, and the team drafted Tua before his second season with the number 5 pick in the 2020 NFL draft. Here's Tua on his former coach versus his now coach, Mike McDaniels.
To put it in simplest terms, if you woke up every morning and I told you you suck at what you did, that you don't belong doing what you do, that you shouldn't be here, that this guy should be here, that you haven't earned this right, and then you have somebody else come in and tell you, dude, you are the best fit for this. Like, you are accurate. How would it make you feel listening to one or the other? And you hear it more and more, you start to actually believe that. Basically been 2 years of training that out of not just me, but a couple of the guys as well that have been here since my rookie year.
All right, Shannon, you know what? I try to lead with love, speak life into people, but I'm not a football coach. What's your reaction to Tua's comments?
Well, I'm not surprised. Stephen A., as a parent, you probably understand this as well as I do. A lot of times we parent the way we were parented. Sometimes when our parents yell at us, we turn around and yell at our kids. And so Brian Flores grew up, as Molly mentioned, under Coach Belichick. And the same thing happened to Josh McDaniels. That's how he coached. He yelled, he screamed. He basically told the players they were less than. And eventually it gets old. At the end, and I understand some players I wanted to be coached. Stephen A., I told all my coaches, I want you to coach me hard, but I am not going to let you curse at me. I am not going to let you disrespect me, because I believe everybody deserves a certain level of respect. But when you go overboard, and I get it. Brian Flores wanted Justin Herbert. Stephen Ross wanted Tua. Obviously, the owner wins out over the head coach. And so I don't get what Brian Flores, if what Tua is saying is true, I don't get what he got out of trying to break him. To break him, to build him up, you have to understand as a coach, you cannot coach everybody the same. My college coach told me this. He said, son, I'm going to treat all of you guys fair, but I'm not going to treat you the same. And so while you trying to beat Tua down, you're breaking his confidence. And I'm sure, because for the longest, people thought Tua was going to be a bust. They thought he was a bust. Mike McDaniels comes in, he leads the league in passing. He throws 29 touchdowns. He gets them into the playoffs. Yeah, I want to believe what Tua has said, because we've seen other coaches from that Belichick tree treat players like this. Talk to players like this. I happen to be very good friends with a lot of people that was still in the Broncos organization when Josh McDaniel was there. And this is verbatim. This is exactly how he treated quarterbacks, how he treated a lot of the players. But the way the human mind works, Stephen A., somebody can say something, 1,000 great things, but our mind is focused on the one negative thing that we heard. So just imagine, you heard 1,000 negative things. Your mind is not going to go to the one time, the positive thing that person says. So, yeah, it's sad that Tua had to go through this. I think he's in a better place. I think he's a better quarterback because of it. And sometimes we need someone to pick us up after we've been beaten down.
Well, let me say this, Shannon. A couple of things. Number one, I remember I'm at Winston-Salem State, just to make you laugh, and I came there with chronic tendonitis in my right knee by the time I arrived at Winston-Salem. So damn it, I mean, before I cracked my kneecap in half, I was limping around, for crying out loud. And Coach Gaines used to sit up there every day. He said, boy, you know I'm from Kentucky. You know what we do to the horses in Kentucky that's limping around all the time? We shoot them. That's what he would say. At least once a week, he would tell me that. You know, in other words, damn, you're always hurt, okay? So I get where, you know, you got those old school kind of coaches like a Brian Flores that worked 15 years under Bill Belichick, and you could imagine the kind of things that he may have said. Tua Tagovailoa has no reason to lie. Let me throw that out there. That's number one. Number two, I'm not going to accuse him of lying. Now, initially, when I heard about the story, before I saw what Tua had said to Dan Le Batard, I said to myself, wait a minute, why are you bringing up Brian Flores? I mean, the man has moved on. You know, he isn't a head coach, can't get a head coaching job in the National Football League, in the National Football League. Let sleeping dogs lie, per se. But when Dan Le Batard asked him the question, and he answered it the way that he did, he still seemed a bit restrained, in spite of what he said. I mean, he still seemed a bit restrained, but articulated, I thought very honestly, what he was going through. He said, when you wake up every day and somebody is telling you you're no good, and here's what really resonated with me, when he said somebody else should be here, not you. Now you're Brian Flores, you got a problem. Because what happened is that you got the owner, Stephen Ross, who wanted Tua. You clearly wanted Justin Herbert. Most of us would believe that was the right decision, but Tua didn't make that call. The owner did.
Right.
Tua Tagovailoa led the league in passing and secured a massive payday. It's a great story, one that many believe will pay off for the Miami Dolphins. But the doubters are still out there. They say he needs to prove he's worth the money. After all, this is a guy who has never won a playoff game when it mattered most. Are the Dolphins legit Super Bowl contenders? No. When they win, it's thanks to Tyreek Hill. When they lose, it's Tua and the run game that gets the blame. I need to see more from guys like Devin Achane and Raheem Mostert, and someone other than Tyreek needs to command the respect of opposing defenses. Does anyone really believe that Tua has proven himself to be a $50 million a year player? Not a chance. You can't win in football if you can only do it in warm weather. Mike McDaniel believes in him, though. Mike helped rehabilitate Tua after Brian Flores broke him down. And now Tua isn't holding back his disdain for his former coach any longer. In an interview on the Dan Le Batard show, the Dolphins quarterback called Flores, quote, a terrible person. Flores, who comes from the Bill Belichick coaching tree, was Miami's head coach from 2019 to 2021, and the Dolphins drafted Tua during his second season with the number 5 pick in the 2020 NFL Draft. Here's what Tua had to say about his former coach versus his current coach, Mike McDaniel. To put it simply, if you woke up every morning and I told you that you suck at what you do, that you don't belong here, that someone else should be here instead of you, that you haven't earned this right, and then someone else comes in and tells you, dude, you are the best fit for this, you are accurate, how would that make you feel? When you hear one message repeatedly, you start to believe it. That's what it was like for 2 years, not just for me, but for a few other guys who have been here since my rookie year. Shannon, I always try to lead with love and speak life into people, but I'm not a football coach. What's your reaction to Tua's comments? Well, Stephen A., I'm not surprised. As a parent, you might understand this as well as I do. We often parent the way we were parented. Sometimes when our parents yelled at us, we end up yelling at our kids. Brian Flores came up under Coach Belichick, and that's how he coached, yelling, screaming, telling players they were less than. Eventually, that wears out. Now, I get it, some players want to be coached hard. I wanted my coaches to be tough on me, but I wouldn't allow them to disrespect me. Everyone deserves a certain level of respect. If you cross that line, you break someone's confidence. For a long time, people thought Tua was going to be a bust. Then Mike McDaniel came in. Tua led the league in passing through 29 touchdowns and got the Dolphins into the playoffs. I want to believe what Tua is saying because we've seen other coaches from the Belichick tree treat players like this. I've got friends who were with the Broncos when Josh McDaniels was there, and this is exactly how he treated quarterbacks and other players. It's sad that Tua had to go through this, but I think he's a better quarterback because of it. Sometimes we need someone to lift us up after we've been torn down.